Now is a great time to be a Plat Fighter fan. Never before have we had so many active games to choose from, and as someone who talks about Plat Fighters on the internet, I occasionally get asked, what's your thoughts on insert game here? Do you like insert game here more than insert game here? So, what better way to let the masses of my YouTube audience know my full thoughts than with the tier list, baby? First off, let's talk ranks. I'm going to treat these letters like their school grade equivalents, where D or lower is a failing grade, C is average, B is above average, A is great, and then there's S, which doesn't exist in the school system yet. So let's just say that it stands for super, or that the Plat Fighter is so good that its flaws are either irrelevant or don't take away from the true core experience. And the main factors for how I would determine said grade is based on a game's content, feel, vibes, personal enjoyment, and just how easy/fun it is to play with friends. Now, as much as this is my favorite genre, I can't say that I have played every single Plat Fighter game. And to be fair, if I don't think I've played a game enough to warrant it on the list, I'll leave it out, or I'll leave it out because I haven't played it at all. So, if there's any Plat Fighters you wish were on this list that I didn't put on said list, go down in the comments, tell me about it. Try and sell me on that game, because I'm always looking for new things to try. Anyway, that said, let's get straight into this. Alright, starting off the list, we're going to go with what I largely like to consider my first Plat Fighter game, and that is Super Smash Flash 2. So you see, when I was a kid, I loved Mario. I loved Sonic. I was an autistic nerd. So I begged my mother up and down to be able to buy Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the Nintendo Wii. But she denied me, stating that the game was rated teen and I was not yet a teenager. So, seeking some sort of content, something to fill that void in my heart, I stumbled upon Super Smash Flash 2, a very talented game, great game for what it is. If we're looking at terms of comparing a game, how it stacks up to everything around it, Super Smash Flash 2 is very in the middle. But when you look at what it is, what it's trying to be, especially with its price point being free, Super Smash Flash 2 is a good time. It's a good experience, Has a lot of characters that you would see in the traditional Smash series, your Marios, your Luigi, Pac-Man, Bowser, Link, etc., but it also has quite a few unique characters that feel right at home, like Tails, Bomberman, Banana Dana Diddly Dee Doo Dum, as well as some surprising entrants as Goku, Naruto, Ichigo, and Luffy. I hope I said that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. So playing this game with friends, there's typically a lot to do. There's a lot to digest, and the way the characters play oftentimes do feel pretty fun. The only thing that really holds this game back to me is the netcode. If I'm trying to play with friends, it's like pulling teeth. It is like pulling teeth to get people to play this game because the netcode is so bad. Trying to play this game locally with people isn't that easy either, because the way that this game detects controller is so finicky. It's just so ugh. As someone who's ran tournaments for this game, ran a local, it is not worth it. It is such a pain, and it's so tragic because Super Smash Flash 2 is an amazing game. But because of that setback, I'm gonna have to put it in B- above winter. Next, let's do an actual Smash Brothers game, or an officially licensed one, that being Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Brawl is the weird, awkward, middle-of-the-road game because competitively and game feel-wise it is awful, but I think to this day it still has the best single-player content for a Smash game. I think there's other games that we'll talk about later that the single player is a bit more promising or a bit more enjoyable, or not even a bit, but significantly more. But, Subspace, if you're someone who wants to see Fox interact with Diddy Kong, you're going to get that. You're going to get that in spades. Because of that, it's a very mishmash game. It's like a mixed bag. I think playing it with friends, it's fun, but in an ironic way, where when I play Brawl with my friends, it's always like, we're playing Brawl, guys. And then within an hour, I'm like, please, can we play Ultimate? Can we just play Ultimate instead? Please, I'm begging you. Because of that, I think I'm also going to have to put Brawl in B-. Like, there's so many good things about Brawl, but there's also a lot of cons. And when you get that, I think, you know, C tier is average, right? That's like average, the middle, the mid, like literally mid, because it's right in the middle. If C's mid, I think Brawl isn't mid. I think there's a lot to it, but I also think it has some significant flaws that make it a very do or die experience. So I'm going to put it in B- below Black Album. Next, we got Brawlhalla. Brawlhalla is such a crazy game to me. It's been around for what feels like forever at this point, and it is still chugging along strong. Like, it's still cranking stuff out. And I think a large part of that is due to their shift in like business and marketing or whatever. Basically, like, I feel like the large amount of crossovers they've been doing lately has done a really good job of keeping itself relevant, especially with a casual fan base. That said, I am not a big fan of Brawlhalla. I don't hate it. In fact, I've actually played it quite a bit. I'll try and put my hours here. The amount of hours I put into Brawlhalla are probably still more than some plat fighters that are going to be on this list that I feel like I enjoy more. But that's just because Brawlhalla, it is such a good core with such an appealing reason to play, that being it's free. Like, you're not really, the only thing you can't waste your money, you can only waste your time. And, you know, some people might think Brawlhalla is a waste of time, and if they do, I can sympathize with that, but I feel like that's a little harsh, you know? I think the weapon system is a really good way, just like a really unique thing, and I think it's always fun engaging with those systems. I think like the actual combat or the combos or the loops or like the weird 50-50 mix stuff, I think that sort of thing isn't really my cup of tea, but there are things that I enjoy about Brawlhalla. So when I'm ranking this one here, if you're gonna ask me, like if you just asked me my personal enjoyment, I would put Brawlhalla next to Green Album. However, I think I see a lot that Brawlhalla is doing, that it does well, that it's fun to play, it's on everything. I think I have to ignore my plat fighter bias as someone who prefers the more, like, I prefer the more unique character kits, I prefer the more, like, combo DI, that sort of stuff, right? I prefer that, but I also realize that what Brawlhalla is trying to be, it's doing a damn good job. So I'm going to put it in A tier, above Hurley and below Red. Speaking of a game that kind of rides the coattails of Brawlhalla a bit, next we're going to talk about Multiversus. I think one thing, I think I did a video about this. I don't remember exactly. I don't know if it was a video I did or if it's just a thought in my head. If there is, I'll probably like show a screenshot of the video title and I'll be like, I'll have some text saying, oh, here's the video if you want. It's a bit dated, but, you know, still good, or blah, 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 blah. Hey, editing me. How are you doing? But, Multiversus, like, when they talk about, like, Multiversus trying to kill Smash, I'm like, no, that's so inaccurate. It's just trying to be Brawlhalla. It's just trying to be a more marketable, more mainstream, bigger budget Brawlhalla. And I think in a lot of ways, you could say that Multiversus succeeded in that. You know, except for the fact where they completely butchered and cannibalized their whole player base, and then they had to shut down for a bit. And then, yeah, Multiversus is going to be a really weird one to rank because, once again, I think there's a lot of things that Multiversus does and does well. I think playing 2v2s in Multiversus is genuinely really, really fun. It's great. But 1v1s is awful. If 1v1s were there, I would put it in bad. And I'm saying that as someone who's put the work into 1v1s, and I just wanted so badly to start enjoying it because LeBron James with his like balls and his like the stuff you could do with his kit, he was one of my favorite plat fighter characters of all time. And so I was desperately trying to enjoy 1v1s because it's hard to like, you know, coerce with a friend and be like, hey, you want to play Multiversus? And it just didn't work. But if you're kind of ignoring that, you focus on 2v2s, its gameplay loops are pretty good. Its monetization is a little scummy, especially since they just packed their bags and left, which I know they're supposed to launch again in May. And I hope they fixed the issues with the game, and like I hope a lot of the balancing, I wasn't a huge fan. Not a big fan of all the cooldowns. It makes it feel very odd. The character roster is amazing. Attention to detail is really good. There's so many things that like I want to put like Multiversus like, you know, at the bottom of S tier or like, you know, right next to Brawlhalla, but they kind of shit the bed. I'm just gonna be honest, they just shit the bed. So I think, in my honest heart, I think Multiversus kind of belongs below Winter in B-. I think there's plenty of time, and I'm going to give this game another shake when it relaunches. I think there's plenty of ways that they could earn that upper echelon spot that I talked about, but as of right now, I just don't see it. I don't see Multiversus being something that's going to make me think it's one of the greatest plat fighters ever. But I hope that changes. Speaking of one of the greatest plat fighters ever, we got Kirby Fighters 2. Wow, what a game. I hate it. It's it's going above Ratitude. It's going above Ratitude in the bad tier. Okay, well, I should probably say why, even if it's just a brief sentence. Everything is slow and floaty, and they're super limited kits. It's a health-based system, but then the health-based system simultaneously feels like it's too much and too little. Everything just kind of feels like it's infinite bait, where like it's like just do your loops, you know, like if you're playing it like competitively, and then it's so slow, so even doing that just isn't that fun. It's like trying to like walk. It's like trying to go on like a brisk walk, and then you're just like stuck in mud. And you're just having to like waddle, pun intended. You're just kind of having to like and just try and get through that mud, and you just can't. Because I really wanted to with Kirby Fighters 2. I wanted it to be the secret, underrated, hidden gem, because it would be really funny if it was. But unfortunately, it is not. Duck Game. Ooh, this is. I'm putting this above red. I'm gonna start with the placement on that one. I'm starting with the placement on that one. Duck Game is very simple, very one note, but it does such a good job at doing that. Like, it is such a good game to just play with friends for a bit. Like, single player wise, I think that's the only thing that's keeping me from S tier, because I like it when a game has something for me to do by myself, even if it is just kind of cliche. Now, Duck Game might have single player stuff, but it wasn't memorable enough for me to be like, yeah, Duck Game has a single player thing. Not good or bad, you know? So I can't put it in S tier because of that. Just personal, like a personal thing for me. Yeah, Duck Game. It's just good. Go play Duck Game, dude. And kind of one of those, on the topic of like games that are technically platform fighters, but you know, your first instinct would be that like, yeah, no, it's not a plat fighter. We're gonna go with the Outfoxies. So the Outfoxies is, in a lot of people's eyes, the first platform fighter, an arcade game made at some point before Smash 64. And I've played it. I've done some. I've gone my way to play it a certain way, you know, and it's all right. Like, it's all right. Like, what it is not bad. What it reminds me a lot of are those like Flash games where you're just like two guys and you just like kind of shoot at each other until one falls dead. Outfoxies is like a full-fledged like arcade version of that, and it has like the whole arcade ladder. You go through that. The characters are pretty interesting. I liked being the monkey because of course I did. I think it's C tier. I think it does its job. I think it's a great introduction to the genre. I think it's a little vanilla, a little white bread, but when you're the first, or largely considered the first, I feel like that sort of vanilla-ness is warranted, so I'm not going to say it's bad, but I'm not going to go out of my way to play that game with people. Next is Icons Combat Arena. So this game, you know, this game has been through a journey that, let's just say, there's going to be an Eyesore the Clown, or Eyesore the whatever. I don't even remember what I'm calling myself right now. There's going to be an Eyesore the whatever video talking about Icons and its bigger brother, or I guess it would be younger brother actually, Rush Rev. Just keep your eyes peeled for that. But what I will say here is that it has a good engine. It feels nice. It's kind of neat to play, but then it just kind of mez out. It just kind of mez out. Like, I think it's actually kind of just like right next to Brawl. It's above average and it's enjoyable, but there's nothing here that I wouldn't rather have somewhere else, that I couldn't get my fix of somewhere else. And that's also a problem, with, where is it? With Smash 4 and Smash 3DS, where, like, I think the gameplay is such an improvement over Brawl. They did not format the mode to be played in a way where it is continually fun to do over and over. The fact that it's like the single player like world where it's almost kind of like a miniature level of subspace or something, that's pretty dope. Like, I loved that when I was playing on it. But you know, you're the only one there. It just kind of ends. Like, you can go through all that trouble to get like the highest stats possible, and then it's like race to the finish, and I'm like, I just wasted all that time so you could make me run to the post, and then one of the guys just happened to pick Sonic, so, like, what was the point anyway? Like, there's just a lot of, like, the things that were unique and the things going for Smash for 3DS and Wii U had kind of flawed. Like, they were just kind of okay at best. I think, like, for nostalgia's sake, I would go back and play this game with my friends a bit, but not enough for me to be like, yeah, guys, this is a B+ game. Like, this is B-. Like, it's slightly above average. And I'm putting it between icons and green. You know what? I think it's time. Let's pull out a big gun right here. Rivals of Aether. When I first saw and I first played Rivals of Aether, I didn't think it was going to be my thing. I thought the lack of ledges were weird. I thought the simple pixel art style would be too restrictive. I was, like, at the time I wasn't, like, pretty big into, like, Melee or P+, so I thought the game, like, I would just be swamped and it just wouldn't be for me, and yada yada yada. But as I played the game more, and more importantly, I, like, learned the game with other friends who didn't know the game, Rivals of Aether is quickly, like, it very quickly, like, in my opinion, one of the best plat fighters ever. I think single player mode is a little lacking. You know, you have the typical story mode. I don't know if they have arcade, but they have Abyss, which kind of functions as the same thing. So I think there isn't like your typical arcade. I think the Abyss kind of replaces it. I think the reward of getting that Abyss skin for, you know, reaching level 10 with the character, super worth it. And I think that kind of gives content, and it's kind of made me go out of my way to be like, okay, sit down, get to level 10 with each character playing Abyss mode. And then as I'm doing that, I'm like learning the character, and I'm getting like a deeper breadth of like how to play the cast. Super fun, super just chill to do that sort of thing. And then you get into multiplayer, and whoo mama, what a good feeling game. I think it's not without its faults, but like its faults are more of like preference, right? Like I was talking about with the ledges. Like, I think it not having ledges isn't a bad thing. I think that's just a preference. And I think most of the issues with Rivals of Aether comes down to preference. And that's why, even if I don't think, like, I'm not 100% on board with this game, even if I don't think I'm 100% on board with this game, there's just so much here to enjoy, and it's so different from anything else on the field, and not in the same way as like Brawlhalla, where it almost feels alienating either. So I'm going to put Rivals of Aether in S tier, between Pinkerton and Blue. Good game. Super excited for Rivals 2. Like, there's been a few stinkers lately where I kept thinking they were going to be like this great, huge, long-lasting thing, and they just didn't really stick around, at least with my own palate, you know? Like, I think there's people who still play and enjoy those games, but it ended up being for me. I am pretty confident in Rivals 2. Like, I believe in Aether Studios. I believe they can pull one out. Pull out, maybe, I'm just excited. And I'll leave it at that. And another pixel art based fighter, largely played on personal computer, is Fraymakers. Fraymakers is the first full-fledged game, you know, fully commercial, fully, like, you know, legally theirs game made by Nickelodeon Gaming. I hope I said that right, I'm sorry. Which, you know, they made Super Smash Bros. 2. And Fraymakers, artistically, oh my goodness, that pixel art is so crisp, so good. It is so mwah, mwah, mwah. The gameplay is just kind of okay. The netcode, last time I checked, was just kind of okay. The, like, game feel itself, last time I checked, was just kind of okay. And I think that's kind of unfortunate because Fraymakers has a lot going for it, but there's also still a lot of things to come with this project. So I wouldn't kind of hold my breath, you know? Like, I think this is kind of like with Multiversus, right? Where that has a chance to win me over more. But I also think the core loop is a bit better than Multiversus. And I think I am going to end up putting Fraymakers in B- tier. But I don't know exactly where. Because I don't know. I think Fraymakers is a better game than Flash 2. But I enjoy Flash 2 more. And then I don't want it to sit next to Multiversus. I don't want the smell, the yucky smell of Multiversus to rub off on Fraymakers. So I think I'm going to put it below Flash 2, but above Winter, so that way it's not next to Multiversus. I think that's a good compromise. I think if you thought Fraymakers is a better game than Flash 2, completely valid. Like, I think these two are interchangeable. And I kind of wish that wasn't the case. I kind of wish I could have a more distinctive opinion about one or the other. But that's just kind of how it is. Speaking of having a distinctive opinion, PlayStation All-Stars is bad. But at least it's better than Kirby Fighters 2. This game, I don't think I could say anything new about this game if I really, really, really tried. Evil Coal for Life? That's probably not something that's been said before. So never mind. Okay, next game, Slayers for Hire. Slayers for Hire is one of those more niche games, but it's like a little indie title that I'm pretty sure is abandoned. Like, I joined the Discord for it, and there's just nothing going on. And I don't know what exactly to say about it. Like, I think what's there with this game is pretty cool. I think the art style is a little weird. Like, I enjoyed it a lot, but it also looks like it was done by like someone in their like second year of art school, where it all has that like brush strokes and it's like kind of concept artish. And that's not really a complaint. Like, I like the way this game looks. I like the way these characters are designed, but also just feels like it's not gelled yet. Like, if you look at the models in the background, and then it kind of has this like flat feeling to it, and it just feels like it doesn't feel like it's fully solidified yet. And speaking of not being fully solidified, it only has 3 characters. Now, what is there with these characters are pretty fun to play. They're kind of unique. They have a lot of unique ideas that are pretty cool, especially when it comes to like using that platforming element of Plat Fighter, where it's like you have the baseball bat guy who's always like trying to chase after his ball. And I think that kind of lends itself to the platforming side and kind of like makes combat engage with platforming in a unique way. And then you have the artist who has like this like ink trail that's always following her. And so you can like reverse your movement and it just kind of like pulls you back. Like, those are both really good ideas and both really fun to explore, but it is kind of bare. It's kind of like, I feel like you kind of get your fill of it. And so I think I'm going to put it in C tier above green, just because of how little there is to actually do. Next up is the platform fighter engine. Now, this is a weird thing to talk about, because if you're like, oh, platform fighter engine, so if we're talking about like the actual game and not just like the software / tool / engine, so you're talking about the stuff with the squares, right? And sort of, but I'm also gonna, this is kind of shallow of me, kind of like just inconsiderate maybe, but I kind of just want to bump like all of the Plat Fighter engine games I've seen. I kind of just want to like mesh them together, you know, like just mesh them together. I'm gonna do that. So like, I think oh man, my mutuals, they're gonna hang me, they're gonna kill me. My swag too different. I'm kind of gonna put this game like, I'm gonna put this top of C tier. I think there's a lot of variety in the engine, especially if we're considering like implementing like other games like MadWatch LCM2 or dude, I played like 4 of them and they're just not memorable. Like MadWatch 2 is memorable because, you know, I have friends who really enjoy the game, and in the game it's just so like batshit, where it's like, oh wow, it's like a Kusage or whatever I think the term is. It's just kind of I think the tool is super cool, and I've messed with it a bit, but unfortunately I'm not talented enough at the moment to do anything with it. And huge respect to the dev of this. Geez, I can't think of their name, but I remember their profile picture. I'll make sure to pull it up. I'll make sure to give the shout out properly. Even though I'm still going to probably edit this part and it's still going to show me, you know, saying like, oh, I don't remember their name. But I'm sure they'll understand. But it's a very cool product. And I think that, you know what? I think just the actual tool of it, you know, especially, you know, you have things like Rivals Workshop, Fray Shop, or Fray Tools or whatever, but the fact that the Platfighter engine is something specifically made for it to be like its own separate thing, I think it should at least be P+. I'll put it at the bottom because I don't want to say that I like Platfighter engine more than any of these albums, because I don't, you know, no disrespect. I think it deserves that just because of the sheer ingenuity of it. And speaking of sheer ingenuity, Super Flash 2 is bad. It's better than Ratitude. Just very clunky, very archaic, very like you just get hit once and you go flying. I think for what it is, what it started and what it's ended up becoming and influencing on the entire genre is super based and super cool, but it doesn't make me want to play the game, so it's still bad. Speaking of bad, Brawlout. Brawlout is bad. I don't like Brawlout, but I'll put it above Teal. This game is just, it just feels so punctual. Like the weight of the engine just doesn't feel like it belongs next to the movesets, the way everything interacts with each other. There's like only rolling, and then everything just, it feels like there's just no game flow whatsoever. I think the guest characters in there are pretty cool, like Dead Cell, Guacamelee, and then is it Ukulele, or you know, like the gecko and the bat. Those are pretty cool, and like as someone who enjoys Guacamelee and Dead Cells, like playing those two guest characters, I'm like, wow, that's pretty neat. But it doesn't do a lot to make me ever want to play this game or ever want to play it with other people. Like it's just kind of like it's just kind of a weak whimper. And I feel like that's a bit of a shame, maybe even a bit of a discredit, because there is a lot going with this game. There's things that you could enjoy. Like maybe for me, the engine just feels like so mismatched and like cobbled together. Like the game doesn't have any sort of flow. The attacks don't have any sort of rhythm to it. But maybe that's just a personal thing and someone else sees the beauty in Brawlout. And if you so choose to do so, that is your decision, not mine. But yeah, unfortunately, it's bad. I think it's probably the best bad game. I still think it's bad.
Hey y'all,
now, let's see. Smash 64, top of C tier. Like, I think it's just average. I think there's a lot to enjoy. And I think I talked about like Flash being super influential and Outfoxies and Brawlhalla. Like those are like huge games for the genre. But let's be honest, even as someone who prefers the alternative Platfighter genre, you know, I'm not just a Smash head. I gotta give respect to Smash 64. Like, even if it wasn't the first, even if you got Outfoxies right here, the Outfoxies, my bad. Even if you got those right there, like Smash 64, like when you say first Platfighter, that's the one people go to because that's the one that feels the most like an actual Platfighter out of those early games. But that's also because of the knockback system, and that's like heavily associated with the genre now. List of reasons. Huge respect on the name. And I think playing it with friends and stuff, I think I would rather play it with friends than something like 3DS and Wii U and maybe Brawl. But there's also just not a lot within the game itself. It's very limited. And so I'm just going to stick with C. If you're someone who thinks it deserves to be higher because of its legacy, fair enough. And I can't blame you for that. This is going to be interesting. So we're getting closer to the end, and we got some real heavy hitters like Flash Party. Flash Party is junk food. It is just junk food to me, man. Like, I just play it, and it feels like I'm playing against bots, and then I sweep, and then I look at all the microtransactions, and my mouth starts to salivate, and I almost pull out my wallet, but right before I shake my head, and I snap out of it, and I stop myself, and I take a deep breath, and I say, oh my god, I almost spent more money on Flash Party. But that's because there is enjoyment to it. It's just junk food for me. Like if you told me which on here is my guilty pleasure, it would probably be Flash 2 or Flash Party. And I didn't consider the fact that they both have Flash into it until I just said that. Pun not intended. Is that a pun? I don't know. Maybe I should have a script. Flash Party, guilty pleasure game. I think I'm gonna actually put it in B+ below Maladroit. I can't believe I said that, but I did. Can't take it back. I could say it. I could just do an edit saying, oh, sorry, I changed my mind, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm just going to have to admit to myself that I think Flash Party isn't bad. All right, next up on the list, we still got some heavy hitters, like Punch Time Explosion. Bad. It's bad. I think the cast is pretty cool. I think if a lot of the cast for Punch Time Explosion could like wander their way into Multiversus, that'd be pretty neat. Especially like Captain Planet and the Toiletnator. I think that's his name, but thinking of the codename Kids Next Door character. There's a lot of it's just clunky. It's just kerplunky. Ugh, yucky. Ew. You know? But that said, now I think we legitimately have some pretty heavy hitters. Like Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 1, which I'm going to put at, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm putting it below Hurley. I think this is another game that does a lot of things right. It does a lot of things wrong. There wasn't any budget. There's a lot of chaos with this game. The meta can sometimes, especially early on, it felt like you were just spamming the same buttons over and over. And I feel like that's largely absent in the final build of the game, excluding Sandy Cheeks. Oh my god. But Nasby, when it comes to like playing with friends, oh my god, it's still pretty good. You know what? Top of B+. Top of B+. Single player is just not there. Single player is just non-existent. Just non-existent, dude. Just non-existent. But you know what is existent? Super Smash Bros. Melee. That can go. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna put it below Duck Game. I'm gonna get shot on sight for that. But Melee is a great game. There's a reason why people still play it, and that reason is that it's really good. And I don't disagree. I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty fun. I think it's super duper competitive, but I also think that if I just booted up the game with my intermediate level friends who can't consistently wave dash, we would have fun. Now, I think most people would probably put Melee in S tier. Yeah, I think most people would put Melee in S tier, but I'm not going to do that because despite everything that's just so good about that game, it's a little too jank for me. I think it's just a little too jank, where it's like, sometimes it just doesn't feel right. And I think that's another personal preference, you know? Where, like, it's not necessarily a flaw. The jank's a flaw. The jank's a flaw. But I think there's people who love the game, and part of the charm of that game is the jank. And if you feel that way, if you feel like Melee should be an S-tier game, that's fair. That's valid. You know, I feel like maybe if I grew up with Melee, I'd probably put it in S tier. I feel like this is a pretty big just bias based off of the environment that I was raised in, or, you know, the environment that I'm in now. But because of that jank, it's a little hard for me to want to put it in S tier. But you know what game I think isn't as janky? Project Plus at the bottom of S tier. For me, when I want that Melee experience, I just play P+. I just whip out my Dolphin emulator and I waddle dash with King DDD and I go yippee 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 and I'm satisfied. And I feel like if you're someone who thinks that P+ or PM, whatever you want to call it, should be lower than Melee, or that P+ existing shouldn't affect Melee's placement, like I said, that's okay. I understand. But personally, you know, this is my tier list. It's my tier list, and as much as I understand opposition, it's still, at the end of the day, my opinion. I love P+. I'm not very good at P+. I'm horrible at P+. I don't think, like, I haven't won a single match in bracket in P+. But that doesn't change the fact that I really enjoy playing it, even if I have a lot to improve on. And so it looks like we got about 4 games left. 1 Smash game left. Can you guess which one it is? It is Smash Ultimate. But before we talk about Smash Ultimate, let's talk about Rushdown Revolt. Rushdown Revolt is the younger brother, the reincarnation, the rising phoenix of Icon's Combat Arena. And for a long time, Rushdown Revolt would be up here. Like, probably not better than White Album. Probably maybe better than OK Human. I don't know. But point being, it used to be really good. But there's something that happened that makes me have to move it all the way down to here, between Flash Party and Pacific Daydream. And the main reason why is the formatting structure, the monetization structure, or whatever you want to call it, where they went from free to play to a paid game. And I don't think that in itself is bad. Like, Rivals of Aether is paid for, P+, well, P+, you know, if you're a good law-abiding citizen, you paid for P+ one way. Brawlhalla's free. Okay, I'm getting lost in the plot here. Point is that I don't think being a paid game is in and of itself is bad. I really enjoy paid games, believe it or not, but Rushdown Revolt did so in a way where it just kind of made everything feel weird. Like when they first announced, like, hey, we're going to start charging you for an online play pack, but if you don't want that, you can still download the game for free, but you just have to play in offline mode. It's just convoluted and confusing, especially if you're someone who's already played the game. And then they did this after announcing that they were going to like close the servers for a bit. And then they did that right after having this huge push for the game by sponsoring tournaments, and people were like, oh wow, Rushdown Revolt, and people started playing it, and then the moment people started playing it, they started closing it down. It's just like a huge can of worms. And that's the thing. At the end of the day, if you sit me down and I play Rushdown Revolt, I got my Raymer, I play against my Erta friend and my the little tiny little witch girl like friend, I love it. It is so good. The mechanics are just so fun. The like Roman cancel burst or whatever you want to call it, just super chill. Like, you know, oh, magnificent. However, everything else around that game is just kind of a hard pill to swallow. And so it's B+. It's B+. You know what? Okay. I changed my mind yet again. I think it's better than NASB 1. I still think it's better than NASB 1. Now, speaking of NASB 1, here's NASB 2. NASB 2, I recently did a video on, if you consider October of last year recent anyway, but I really liked the game then. I thought the single player was pretty darn good. I thought the multiplayer was pretty darn good. I thought the online was pretty darn good. And as someone who is since, played the game, kind of had the hype die down. The hype did kind of die down for me, I'll be honest. I think it is in A tier below Autumn. Yeah. And the reason why I feel that way is that there's just a certain few things about the game that even if it's one of my favorites, I can't put it in S tier. Like, the game is a buggy mess. It feels like every time they do a balance patch, they accidentally break another character. It's made me just not really think of this game as some sort of like golden standard, and I can't put something in S tier if I don't think it's a golden standard, if I don't think it's like just a magnificent game. And, because of that, Nick Brawl 2 just ain't really, it's just kind of like lost its thunder a bit. Like, I feel annoyed when I play the game because of how buggy it feels like. It feels like the game got buggier with patches. Now, they could have, in the last two patches, they could have changed things around better. They could have made the game a bit, made that flaw feel a little bit irrelevant. And if so, my apologies. But, the experience in my brain as someone who really liked this game and was excited to play this game forever, and then it just kind of like sizzled out after a few bad balance patches, a few just, Mr. Krabs, oh my god, he feels so bad. I there's still 3 characters left, but when I was playing him, my brain went, you spent $20 on this guy. Not worth it. And that kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth too, especially because it's, you want your first DLC to have a lot of promise to it. You want it to be something to tell people like, hey, this is what's coming up. And it just didn't really do that for me. I will say though, I do think I would still put it like below Melee, below Red Album. So between Red and Brawlhalla, but I think there's a pretty decent gap between these two. but that's just, personal. And next, we're down to 2 games. Let's talk about it. I think both of these games are S-tier games. First up, we got Smash Ultimate. Smash Ultimate, I'm going to put it here, but I don't think it'll stay there. Smash Ultimate is the ultimate plat fighting game. It just is. Not a huge fan of the competitive meta and just the way the game plays at the competitive level. Not a huge fan. Not really a fan at all. But what's the most important thing to me when it comes to playing the game is how much fun I have with my friends. And holy crowley, like, I could be in the middle of the biggest Nasby 2, biggest Multiversus, biggest Rivals of Aether bender, but I still am pretty much always down to play Smash Ultimate with people because it's just that fun to play. Like, the engine is just that smooth, that polished. It just has that much content. There's just, it's just the holy grail. Like, it's definitely, like, here. Yeah. And Smash Ultimate is just, like, so much variety. So much variety in characters, so much that. But it's also kind of simple. Like, you look at, like, Rivals of Aether cast, their cast is significantly different across the board. But Smash Ultimate's cast is kind of simple, but because of that simplicity, it's always fun to engage with new topics, new characters, new ideas, and it adds to the variety just with its accessibility. The online, not perfect, pretty far from not perfect. Can I keep it in S tier with the bad net code? I don't know. Okay. I'm gonna have to bump you down to here. I'm sorry. Smash Ultimate's netcode, not great. But yeah, I think Smash Ultimate is the ultimate plat fighting game. And I think if the next Smash game is trying to one-up it, I don't know how they're going to do it. So, next up, we have our last game. And you eagle-eyed viewers might see who's missing. Some of you might not. But that final game is Slap City. Slap City, great game. Just such a lovely game. When I first played it, I didn't think I was going to like it. And when I first played it, I was kind of in the middle about it. But as someone who's since gone on to beat all the single-player content, go on to play a huge amount of online multiplayer with friends, I honestly think that Slap City is the best plat fighter. I genuinely do. Slap City is my favorite plat fighter. It used to be Rush Rev. At one point, I think it used to be Nasby. At one point, I think it used to be Rivals. And at one point, I think it used to be Ultimate. But right now, in this moment, before the eve of Multiversus comes back like Jesus Christ ascending from his tomb, until that happens, which I don't think it will, Slap City is currently my favorite plat fighter. I think the cast is so lovable. I think the engine is amazing. I think it has the best single-player content. It's just... Like, it's just good. It's just good, dude. Like, I could spill my guts, but I kind of want to save it for its own video, if you understand. But, like, the flaws... Like, if you look at a game that has, like, the wave dashing and that complex stuff, like P+ or Melee, people might be like, oh, it's just not casual friendly. It's just not casual friendly because of that. But if you look at Slap City, if you look at that cast, you look at the things, like, it's so oddly, like, intuitive, like, where it's like, there's a lot of complicated things you can do, but at the same time, it's just dumb fun. Like, it is literally, like, the perfect middle ground for me between overly competitive and overly casual. Like, it's just a fine line right there. It's just mwah, mwah. And I am so glad that I could buy the game for dirt cheap off of a key website, because I was kind of on the fence about that game. But since then, best decision of my life apparently. But yeah, that's it. That's the tier list. This is what it looks like. I think it looks pretty interesting. I haven't looked at the Weezer stuff since I've done this tier list, and I'm like, did I really do that? Did I really put OK Human over Pinkerton and Blue? And I guess I did. Part of me wants to switch it up a bit. But if I do that, I'll be another time. I gotta focus. I gotta stay focused on my task, and that is plat fighting. The plat fighters. The platform fighters. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching my Plat Fighter tier list. This is I Sort of the Whatever, signing out. Peace and love. Bye-bye.